Stoicism has become a kind of toolkit lately. The morning routine, the cold shower, the good quote on the screen before the day starts pulling at you. But it is late, and you have stepped outside for a moment without quite knowing why. Maybe you needed the air. Maybe the house felt small. Above you, the sky is doing what it always does, which is everything at once. And for a second, you feel small under it, and you cannot tell whether that should frighten you or steady you. Some of that toolkit helps, but underneath the quotes and the routines, there was a whole picture of the world. The Stoics had a way of seeing the universe, and the practices we borrow today grew out of that way of seeing, the way fruit grows on a particular tree. This is a guide to that picture. The Stoic worldview as they actually held it, and what inside it is still worth carrying into a life like yours. By the end, you will have a way to stand under that sky, and inside your own ordinary week, more steadily than you do tonight. If you want to keep practicing together, subscribe. It helps these conversations reach the people who need them. Settle in. The work begins. Start with a morning that got away from you before it began. You wake and reach for the phone before your feet have touched the floor. And inside the first minute, you have already taken in a war on another continent, a market falling somewhere, 3 messages from work, and a face you used to love living a life that no longer has room for you. None of it is in the room with you. All of it is in your chest. You have not stood up yet, and the whole world is already sitting on you. There is another version of the same morning, and you know it too. You are out walking, early or late, and you look up, and the size of the thing above you empties you out for a moment. You are a speck on a speck. Nothing you did today changes anything at that scale. And strangely, what arrives is not despair. Something in you loosens. The weight comes off for a breath or two. Those 2 feelings, the world on your chest and the world lifting off it, are the doorway into the Stoic worldview. Because before the Stoics ever told you what to do with your morning, they told you where you were standing. They had a picture of the whole and your place in it. And the practices we are going to work through only make sense once you have seen the picture they came from. So let us start where they started, not with a rule, with the universe. It is the year 175. A man sits in a cold camp on the northern edge of an empire, near a river the Romans call the Danube, in a place we now name Carnuntum. He is the most powerful man alive, and he looks tired in the way that power does not fix. There is plague moving through the camp. There has been war for years, and there will be more. When the day's work of command is finally done, late, by the light of a small lamp, he writes. Not letters, not speeches. He writes to himself, in Greek, short passages meant for no other eyes, reminders he plainly needs to hear again. His name is Marcus Aurelius, and the private notebook he is filling will one day be called the Meditations. He is not composing a book, he is steadying a mind. And one of the things Marcus keeps telling himself in that camp, with death in the next tent, is that nothing happening to him is happening outside the order of a single, connected whole. Consider how strange that is. An emperor surrounded by the largest machine of power on earth, and the thing he reaches for at night is not more power. It is perspective. There is something almost funny in it, and something moving. Marcus writes about calm from the least calm place in the world. He writes about the serene order of the whole from a frontier fort full of sickness and mud. He is not pretending the mud is not there. He is reminding himself that the mud is not all there is. 18 centuries later, you are reaching for the same thing on a different screen in a different kind of camp. The war is smaller. The need is identical. Here is what Marcus and the Stoics before him believed about the universe, and I am going to tell it to you as their picture, because that is what it is. They believed the cosmos was not a heap of separate objects, but a single living body, one thing, with every part in quiet communication with every other part. Nothing in it truly cut off. They had a word for that connectedness. The word is sympatheia. It means, roughly, that the whole feels with itself, that a change in one place is a change in the system, that you were never a passenger riding inside the universe, but something closer to a cell within it. Pull one thread and the cloth moves. Marcus puts it to himself plainly. Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 6. Now I have to be honest with you about how far the Stoics took this, and how far I will not. They held that this living whole was itself divine, a rational God. They believed its reason ran through every part, and that the spark of mind in you was a chip off that larger fire. That was their physics and their theology fused into one thing. I am not going to hand you that as the truth of how things are. When I look at the order of the world, at how astonishingly the parts fit, it points me beyond the world rather than back at it. That is my honest position. I will say it once and leave it, because this is not the place for that argument, and I am not trying to win you to anything. What I want you to see is that you can set the theology down, and something true is still standing in the room. You are part of something far larger than the inside of your own skull. The crushing mourning, the war you cannot stop, the market you cannot move, the person who is gone. Most of that is the weather of a vast system, and you are one small part of it. The weather is real. It is not yours to carry on your back. And here is the turn the Stoics make that most people miss. We hear the words, "You are small," and we flinch, waiting for the bottom to drop out. The Stoics meant the opposite of despair. Smallness seen straight is mercy. If you are a part and not the whole, then the whole was never your assignment. You can put it down. You were always allowed to put it down. What here is yours, and what is not? Hold that question. We will return to it more times than you can count, because in the end, it is the whole philosophy folded into 7 words. But for now, let it sit beside the picture of the one body. You, a small connected part, inside something enormous, made anxious mostly by trying to hold a weight that was never handed to you. Here is the practice. The Stoics called it the view from above. Find a few quiet minutes, ideally early, before the day has its hands on you. Close your eyes. picture yourself exactly where you are, in this room, this building. Then begin to rise. See the street below you, the roofs, the town laid out like something on a table. Keep rising. See the wider country, the coastlines, the curve of the whole earth with its weather moving across it, and its countless lives all going on at once. Every one of them as vivid and as absorbing to the person living it as yours is to you. Hold that wide view for a moment. Then come back down, slowly, to the one small life you actually have to live today. Notice what got smaller on the way up. You will try this, and your mind will dart straight back to the details. The message you have to send, the thing someone said in a meeting. That is not failure. That is what minds do. When it happens, do not scold yourself. Just rise again. The practice was never the perfect picture held without a wobble. The practice is the rising, again and again. The steady habit of stepping back far enough to see the size of things. Give it 2 minutes. 2 honest minutes will do more than 20 distracted ones. Carry this sentence with you. You are a part, not the whole. Act like a part. That is one room of the house. There is another, and it sits behind the first. You know the feeling of a thing that will not make sense. Something happens, and it is not even the pain that keeps you awake, so much as the senselessness of it. You lie there at 3 in the morning, running it again, turning it over, looking for the hinge that would let it click into place. Why this? Why now? Why me? You are not really asking for the hurt to stop. You are asking for it to mean something, for there to be an order underneath it that you simply have not found yet. That hunger, the refusal to believe the world is just noise, is very old. It is, in a sense, where philosophy itself begins. And it is where the Stoic worldview takes its second step. Having said the universe is one connected body, the Stoics went on to make a bolder claim. They said that body is not chaos. They said it is ordered, all the way down, by reason. It is the year 300 before the Common Era, or near enough. A merchant from Citium on the island of Cyprus is shipwrecked somewhere near Athens. His name is Zeno. His cargo goes to the bottom, and with it most of what he owns. The story goes that he washes up in the city with little more than his life, walks into a bookseller's, and hears someone reading aloud from an old account of Socrates. Something in it stops him cold. He asks the bookseller where he might find men who live like that. A philosopher happens to be passing, and the bookseller simply points and says, "Follow him." And Zeno does. He stays in Athens, he studies for years, and eventually he begins to teach, standing under a painted public colonnade in the heart of the city, a porch known as the Stoa Poikile. From that porch, that stoa, his followers take the name we still use, Stoics, people of the porch. Notice what the man who lost everything at sea chose to build. Not a fortune to replace the one the water took, a picture of the world. And the very first thing that picture insists on, before any advice about how to live, is that what happened to Zeno on that shore was not random debris in a meaningless sea. It was part of an order. The Stoics could not prove that, any more than you can prove it at 3 in the morning. but they stake their whole philosophy on the wager that reason runs through things. 23 centuries later, you are lying awake, doing the same thing Zeno started doing on that beach, trying to find the order in what happened to you. The Stoics had a word for the reason they believed was woven through the world. The word is logos. For them, it meant something like the rational principle that organizes everything, the order built into matter itself, rather than imposed from outside. To the Stoics, the world did not merely contain reason here and there. The world was reasoned through and through, and your own mind was the place where that larger order became able to look at itself. And here is where I part ways with them, briefly, so you know exactly what you are being handed. The Stoics did not stop at the word ordered. They said the order was divine, that the whole was a kind of rational God, and that you carried a fragment of it inside you. That was their belief, sincerely held, and I will always tell it to you as theirs. I do not share it. When I see how finely the parts fit, I read it as a sign pointing past the world, not as the world worshiping itself. I will say that plainly once, and then I will get out of the way, because this channel exists to help you live, not to argue you across a line. So set the theology down and look at what is left, because what is left is solid. Two things hold no matter what you finally believe about the cosmos. The first is that the world runs on an order you did not write and cannot fully predict. The second is that you carry one rare piece of equipment most of the world does not. You can step back from your own reactions and judge them. You can reason. That is not a small inheritance. It is the whole basis of everything that follows. Zeno, the shipwrecked merchant, left a line that fits a life built this way. Well-being is attained little by little, and nevertheless is no little thing. Zeno of Citium, as recorded by Diogenes Laertius. He learned it the slow way. A good and steady mind is not handed to you in a moment of insight. It is laid down, piece by piece, like the order of the cosmos itself, one ordinary choice at a time. And though it comes slowly, it is the furthest thing from small. So what do you do with a world you did not design and cannot command? You stop demanding that it explain itself, and you bring the one ordered thing you actually own to meet it, your own judgment. The world will not always make sense to you. You can still meet it with a mind that is not in pieces. Here is the practice. I will keep it plain because the Stoics meant it plainly. Once a day, stop in front of one ordinary thing and actually look at it until you see its order. The grain running through a piece of wood. The way rain finds the lowest path down a window without being told. The structure of a single leaf. The working of your own slow breath. You are not doing this to worship anything, and you are not invoking anything. You are doing it to remind your nervous system of a plain fact. Order is the rule in this world, and your panic is the exception. Most of reality is lawful, patient, and entirely unbothered by your mood. There is something steadying in that, once you stop taking it as an insult. It will feel pointless after a day or two. Do it anyway, briefly, for the space of a few breaths. The point is not the insight. The point is the habit of looking outward at what is steady when everything inward feels like it is coming apart. What here is yours, and what is not? Carry this sentence with you. The world is ordered. Your task is to answer in kind. But the order of the cosmos was never the problem. The problem is closer in. Come closer in. Here is the morning that actually runs your life. You are waiting on something you cannot control. A decision someone else is making about you. A result that is already determined but not yet known. A message that has not come. And you cannot leave it alone. You refresh. You rehearse what you will say if it goes one way, then the other way. You replay a conversation that already happened and edit your lines in it, as if a better performance now could reach back and change what was already said. The thing has not even arrived, and you have lived through it 40 times. By the time the real answer comes, you are exhausted by 100 versions that never existed. This is the center of the whole Stoic worldview, and it is the place where their picture of the cosmos turns finally into something you can use before breakfast tomorrow. Because the Stoics believed something hard about the world, and then they did something brilliant with it. The hard belief first. The Stoics held that nearly everything is fated. To them, it was a fixed chain, cause locked to cause, locked to cause, running through all things and binding them together long before you ever showed up to object. In their physics, the storm comes when it comes. The body sickens when it sickens. The empire rises and falls on a sequence already in motion long before you arrived. To them, the great machine of events was not yours to redirect. It was going to do what it was going to do. And the obvious response to that is despair or laziness. If it is all settled, why lift a finger? Why care? Why try? Why get out of bed? If you have ever felt the quiet pull of that thought, you are not weak, and you are not the first. It is the natural reading. The Stoics looked straight at it and answered it. And their answer is the most useful single idea this philosophy ever produced. They said this: yes, the events are largely out of your hands, but there is one thing the chain of causes does not own: your judgment, your response, what you make of what happens. That and that alone is fully yours. They had a word for it too: Prohairesis. It is the faculty of choice, the will, the part of you that decides how to meet a thing. Epictetus called it the one true possession, the only thing no one and nothing can take from you without your consent. And Epictetus had earned the right to say it. It is the year 65 in Rome. A young man is a slave in the household of a powerful freedman, a man who himself once served the emperor. His name is Epictetus, and his leg has been broken, we are not told exactly how, and badly enough that he will walk with it bound in a wooden frame and limp for the rest of his life. I will not invent the cruelty behind it, because the records do not give it to us. What we know is the result: a man who did not own his own body, who could be moved and used and damaged at another person's word, and who became one of the great teachers of human freedom. Epictetus had studied under Musonius Rufus, the Roman Stoic who was called the Roman Socrates for his uncompromising ethics. From this teacher, the future slave learned that philosophy was not an academic exercise, but a discipline for living. He carries this forward into his own teachings while still enslaved. After Nero's death, the political weather shifts and he is freed, and eventually he teaches, first in Rome and later across the sea in a town called Nicopolis. And the lesson at the heart of everything he taught came straight out of his own life. They could break his leg. They could not touch his will. They owned where his body went. They never once owned what he made of it. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Epictetus, Enchiridion, chapter 5. Read that again slowly, because almost everything practical in Stoicism unfolds from it. It is not the lost job that wrecks you. It is your verdict about the lost job, the story you tell about what it means, the future you build out of it at 3 a.m. It is not the rude message, it is the meaning you hand it. The event knocks once. Your judgment is what invites it in to live with you. If that sounds like a modern idea, that is because it became one. Centuries later, the people who built the most widely used form of talking therapy traced their core method straight back to this line of Epictetus. The whole technique of catching a distorted thought and questioning it before you believe it is, at bottom, his. And it was tested in a far harder place than a clinic. An American naval officer named James Stockdale spent years as a prisoner of war, held and tortured and kept in isolation. He had read Epictetus before he was captured, and he kept a copy of the handbook with him, and he said afterward that it was Epictetus who gave him the frame to survive it. The thing itself was brutal. His judgment about the thing was the ground he refused to surrender. 19 centuries separate you from the slave with the broken leg, and half a century from the prisoner in the cell. You are in neither place, but you are waiting on something you cannot control, bracing for a verdict that was never yours to give. And the only ground that is actually yours to stand on is the same small patch Epictetus found while he was still in chains. Your judgment, your response, what you make of it. So here is the Stoic instrument, the one I would hand you before any other in this entire philosophy. They called it the dichotomy of control. You sort the world into 2 piles. In one pile, the things that are up to you, your judgments, your choices, your effort, your own conduct. In the other pile, everything else, your body and its health, your reputation, other people and their opinions and decisions, the past, the outcome, the weather, the result. The whole discipline is learning in real time which pile a thing belongs in, and then spending your energy only on the first. I will be honest with you, I struggle with this one too. I have lain awake, relitigating something I cannot change, refreshing for an answer that will arrive exactly when it arrives, no matter how often I look. Knowing the teaching and living it are 2 different countries, and I do not always have my papers. So I am not telling you this from a mountain. I am telling you from the same road, a little further along, looking back. And here I want to qualify one thing the Stoics sometimes said, because the cold version of this can do real damage. Some of them spoke as though the things in the second pile were therefore worth nothing, mere externals, indifferent. I will not go that far, and I do not want you to. Your health is not nothing. Your work is not nothing. The people you love are emphatically not nothing. A child is not a borrowed object you are merely holding for a while. These are real goods. The point of the sorting is not to pretend they do not matter. It is to stop trying to control what was never yours to control, while you go on loving and tending what you have, with open hands and full gratitude. Keep the clear sight. Refuse the coldness. The Stoics also said your power of judgment was a fragment of the divine, a God within you. I leave that frame to them and keep the part you can actually use, stated plainly. You have reason. You have a conscience. They are yours. They answer to no one else. And you are responsible for what you do with them. That is enough to build a life on. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus, Discourses, Book 1. Notice he does not say the free man is the one with no chains, no losses, no bad luck. Epictetus had all three. He says the free man is the one who governs the only territory that was ever actually his. Here is the practice. Tonight, or the next time something lands on you and your chest tightens, do this. Take the thing and say, out loud if you can, this part is mine, and this part is not. The result is not mine. My preparation is. His opinion is not mine. My honesty is. Whether they call is not mine. Whether I keep my dignity while I wait, that is entirely mine. Then act on your half with everything you have, and set the other half down. Not with a sigh of defeat, with the plain recognition that it was never in your hands, and your hands have better work to do. You will sort it cleanly tonight, and then tomorrow, under pressure, the two piles will blur, and everything will feel like yours to fix. That is normal. The skill is not sorting perfectly once. The skill is returning to the question every time the world hands you something heavy. What here is yours, and what is not? Ask it slower than feels comfortable. The answer is almost always smaller than your fear wants it to be, and that smallness is the door out. Carry this sentence with you. What is yours is small, and it is everything. Set that down for a moment. Pick this up instead. There is a particular ache that comes not from waiting on something, but from a thing that has already happened and will not be undone. The plan that fell through. The call you did not want and could not refuse. The morning the news was bad, and the day kept going anyway, indifferent, as if it had not just changed everything. And you find yourself braced against it, your whole body clenched around a fact, arguing with something that is already finished, as if enough refusal could push the world back into the shape you wanted. The Stoic worldview has a name for the opposite of that clench, and it is one of the most misunderstood ideas in the whole tradition. They called it amor fati. The phrase means the love of one's fate. And before you decide whether you can stomach it, you should know what they actually meant, because the cheap version of it is everywhere, and it is not what they were teaching. It is the year 64, near the end. A man in his late 60s sits at a desk in Rome and writes letters to a younger friend named Lucilius. The man is Seneca. He has been a power behind the throne, a tutor to an emperor who has turned dangerous, and he can feel the ground going soft beneath him. So he writes, letter after letter, more than 100 of them, the collection we still read today as the Letters from a Stoic. And again he comes back to the same theme: how to meet whatever fortune sends without being shattered by it. How to be ready. I have to tell you one honest thing about Seneca, said with affection rather than blame, because it matters. The man writing these calm letters about wanting little and needing less was, at the time, one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He preached a simple sufficiency from inside an enormous fortune. You can hold that against him, or you can do what I do, and notice that the people who write most beautifully about a virtue are very often the ones still wrestling with it. Seneca knew exactly how heavy money and status were, precisely because he was carrying so much of both. The teaching is not less true for coming from a struggling teacher. None of us teaches this from the far side of having mastered it. 18 centuries later, you are doing the thing Seneca was trying to talk Lucilius out of. Bracing, arguing with a fact, spending today's strength fighting yesterday's weather. So here is amor fati, the real thing. The Stoics believed that since the chain of events was fixed, the wise response was not bitter resignation, but a kind of glad acceptance. To meet what comes without wasting your life resenting it. They had a vivid image for this. They pictured fate as something that leads a person along, and they said, it leads the willing and drags the reluctant. That was their picture. Either way, you are going where the road goes. The only choice you have is whether you walk it on your feet or get hauled along on your back, cursing. Now I will qualify this, because here my own compass turns a little differently from theirs, and you deserve to know where. The Stoics, at their coldest, asked you to love blind, impersonal necessity for its own sake, to feel affection for the machinery simply because it is the machinery. I cannot go that far, and I will not ask you to. I do not meet what comes as meaningless noise to be loved because there is nothing else to do. I meet it by setting down the argument with it, not by pretending to love it. That is a quieter thing than loving your bad luck, and a steadier thing than fighting it. I will say that much once and leave it, and keep the part of amor fati that is pure gold. Stop arguing with what has already happened. It is the most exhausting fight in the world, and it has never once been won. And let me kill the worst misreading of this while it is in front of us. Amor fati does not mean you should want bad things to happen, or grin at suffering, or refuse to act. The Stoics were not telling you to enjoy the loss. They were telling you to stop adding a second suffering, the suffering of refusal, on top of the first one that already arrived. You can grieve a thing fully and still not spend 10 years at war with the fact of it. There is a real distance between acceptance and approval. Acceptance is the decision to stop bleeding energy into a fact that will not move, so that you have something left for the part that can still change. Seneca put the engine of it in one line. A man's happiness is the result of all his clear-sightedness. Seneca, Letter 75. Not his luck, not his fortune, which Seneca had in abundance, and which never once made him calm. His clear-sightedness, the ability to see a thing as it actually is, accept the part that is settled, and turn his strength toward the part that is not. Here is the practice. The Stoics did it in the morning, and it sounds grim until you try it, at which point it becomes oddly freeing. They called it the premeditation of difficulties. Take a few quiet minutes at the start of the day, before the day starts. Picture, without drama, the things that might go wrong in it. Someone might be sharp with you. The plan might slip. A small loss, a delay, a piece of friction. Let yourself see it plainly and say, simply, if that comes, I can meet it. You are not trying to summon disaster. You are taking the ambush out of the ordinary hardships of a day, so that when one of them arrives, you are not also blindsided, just dealing with it. Then, and this part matters, turn and notice everything that is fine right now. The morning that did come, the people who are still here, the plain fact of being alive to have this kind of day at all. You can take this too far, and the Stoics warned about it. If you sit in the imagined loss and marinate, you have not built resilience, you have just rehearsed anxiety. So keep it brief, glance at what could come, affirm that you could meet it, and land hard on gratitude for what is actually in front of you. Look at the dark for a moment. Live in the light. I will be honest with you again. I have lost entire arguments in the shower to people who were not there about things that had already been decided. I know exactly how much of a day a clenched fist can eat. This is not a finished man telling you to relax. It is a fellow practitioner telling you that the fist is heavier than the thing it is squeezing. What here is yours, and what is not? The fact is not yours. It already happened. What you do in the next hour still is. Carry this sentence with you. Spend less of today fighting what already happened. There is one more turn to all of this, and it is the largest one. The turn of time itself. You catch it in small ways. A photograph of yourself from years ago, and the strange double feeling of recognizing the face and not quite believing it was you. A birthday that lands heavier than it used to. A parent who has started to seem older than you are ready for them to be. Or just the arithmetic that arrives uninvited at 3 in the morning. The quiet sum of how many years are likely behind and how many ahead. And the small cold drop in the stomach when the second number turns out to be smaller than you were pretending. We spend enormous effort not looking at this. The Stoics built it into the foundation of their worldview and looked at it every single day, and they came out steadier for it, not gloomier. It is the year 206 before the Common Era, in Athens. An old philosopher named Chrysippus, the third head of the Stoic school and one of the sharpest logical minds the ancient world produced, is watching a donkey eat a bowl of figs. The story goes that he is so tickled by the sight that he calls out, half to the room, "Now give the donkey some wine to wash the figs down." And he is so delighted by his own joke that he bursts out laughing, and laughs so hard that he dies on the spot. It is almost certainly a legend, and I tell it as one. But notice what the ancient world wanted to believe about its most rigorous logician. Not that he died in terror, that he died laughing at a donkey. The Stoics are remembered, fairly or not, as grim and clenched. The truth running through their stories is closer to the opposite. A philosophy that looks at death every day is not a philosophy of gloom. Done right, it is what lets you laugh at the donkey. 18 centuries later, you are spending a surprising amount of effort not to look at the one thing Chrysippus and the Stoics looked at squarely every single day, and came away lighter for having seen. Now the Stoics had a vast cosmic version of this, and I will tell it to you as theirs, and then set it gently aside. In their physics, they believed the whole universe runs in cycles, that it ends in a great fire and is reborn again and again, world after world without end. That was their picture of the cosmos. I do not hand it to you as fact, and I am not going to dwell in it, because that grand machinery is not the part that helps you on a Tuesday. The part that helps you is much smaller and much closer. It is the practice they called the remembrance of death. In the old phrase, memento mori, remember that you will die. And I want to be careful here, because in the wrong hands this curdles into something morbid, a kind of luxurious sadness. That is not what the Stoics meant, and it is not what I am offering you. The remembrance of death is not a weight, it is a lens. It is the single fastest way to tell the trivial from the true. Watch what it does. Hold, just for a moment, the plain fact that your time is finite and you do not know the total. Now look back at the thing that had its hands around your throat this morning. The slight from a colleague, the comment under your name, the status you did not get, the message someone left unanswered. Against the fact of a whole finite life, how much of that survives? Some of it does. The way you treated someone survives. Whether you were honest survives. The bitterness you chose to carry for a decade, that survives, and it costs. But the slight, the number on a screen, most of it shrinks to its real size the instant you remember it has to share the day with your mortality. Cleanthes, the second head of the school, the former laborer who carried water by night so he could study by day, left a line about meeting hardship that fits the end of things as well as the middle. He said that it is a man's crowning glory that he stays in his place and suffers. Cleanthes. He did not mean suffer pointlessly. He meant that the highest thing in a person is not the absence of hard times, but the refusal to abandon your post when they come, to hold your place, to keep your character intact while the weather, including the final weather, does what it does. Here is the practice, and it is gentler than it sounds. Once today, take the thing you are most anxious about and set it for a moment against the size of your one finite life. Then ask it a plain question. In the end, will this have mattered? Sometimes the answer is no, and you feel a knot you have been carrying simply come undone, because it never deserved the room it was taking. And sometimes the answer is yes, this matters. This is one of the few things that truly will. And then the remembrance of death does its other work. It tells you to stop wasting the limited days you have on the things that do not matter, so you have time and attention left for the few that do. Keep it short. This is a lens you glance through, not a room you move into. If you find yourself sinking into gloom, you have misused the tool. Look at the fact of the end the way you would check a compass, just long enough to find your direction, and then walk on toward what actually matters, lighter for having looked. What here is yours, and what is not? Your days are numbered, and the number is not yours to set. What you spend them on still is. Carry this sentence with you. Remember the end, and the small things stay small. If the remembrance of death sorts the trivial from the true, then it forces an honest question. What is true? What actually deserves the limited days you have? The Stoics had a one-word answer, and they did not flinch when they gave it. You already know the feeling that this chapter lives in, because you felt it recently. The small, private knowledge, at the end of a day, that you were not quite the person you meant to be. You were sharp with someone who did not deserve it. You stayed quiet when you should have spoken. You did a thing not because it was right, but because of how it would look, and you knew the difference, even as you did it. No one else saw the gap. You saw it, and it sat with you, that quiet gap between the person you intend to be and the person the day actually produced. It is the year 280 before the Common Era, in Athens. A new student has arrived at the school of Zeno, and he is poorer than the others. Far poorer. His name is Cleanthes. He was a boxer once, a manual laborer, a big and slow-seeming man whom the quicker students are inclined to underestimate. He has no money to keep himself while he studies, so he works. At night, he hauls water through the dark streets, carrying it for anyone who will pay. And by day, he sits and learns philosophy on too little sleep and less food. His effort becomes known across the city. At one point, the court is so struck by his discipline that it moves to grant him a sum of money, a public reward. And Zeno, his teacher, forbids him to take it. Consider how strangely that lands on a modern ear. A poor man is offered money he has plainly earned, and his teacher tells him to refuse it, and he refuses it. And the story is repeated for centuries afterward, not as cruelty, but as a kind of honor. The point was never that money is evil, or that you should turn down fair pay. The point was what Cleanthes proved about himself. He did not need the reward to keep going. His reason for hauling the water was the philosophy and the man he was becoming, not the coin and not the applause. He would go on to lead the entire school after Zeno died. The others had quicker minds. Cleanthes had the thing the Stoics prized above every quickness, and it is the subject of this chapter. 23 centuries later, you are keeping score of yourself too, not in coins, in something much closer to what Cleanthes was building in the dark with those buckets. Here is a Stoic answer to what is truly worth having, stated as plainly as they stated it. The only thing that is good, without qualification, they said, is a good character. The four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Not your health, which can fail, not your wealth, which can vanish, not your reputation, which lives in other people and was never yours to keep. Your character. Because it is the one thing that is fully inside your own control. The one possession no accident and no enemy can take from you without your consent. Everything else can be stripped away, and you can still, in the stripping, be honest, be fair, be brave, be kind. That, they said, is where the whole weight of a life should rest. And here I will tell you plainly that this is one the Stoics are right about, and I have tested it long enough to trust it. The things I have lost over the years hurt exactly as much as the Stoics said externals would, and not one of them touched the only question that turned out to matter, which was who I was while I lost them. Marcus, still inside the Stoic picture that the cosmos itself was rational, put the inner side of it in a single line. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 10. He meant that when your character is in order, when you are not at war with your own conscience, a strange peace follows you out into everything else. The man at peace with himself is not easily knocked sideways by the world, because the part of him that matters is already settled. What they were aiming for in all of this was eudaimonia, the Greek word for the good life, for human flourishing. Not happiness as a fleeting feeling, but the deep contentment that comes from living according to your highest nature, from being the person your own best nature was always pointing toward. Now I have to clear away the worst misreading of all of this, because it is everywhere and it does real harm. People hear the Stoics talk about self-command and a settled mind, and they think the goal is to feel nothing, to go cold, to become a kind of stone. The Stoics had a word that gets dragged into this, the last Greek word I will give you, apatheia. The English ear hears apathy, and the English ear is wrong. The Stoics meant freedom from being ruled by the destructive passions, freedom from being dragged around by rage and terror and craving. It was never the absence of feeling. Here I will say my own piece, gently, because it matters more than almost anything else in this philosophy. Grief is not a malfunction. Tears are not a failure of discipline. To love someone and lose them and weep is not weakness. It is the correct response of a sane heart. And any version of Stoicism that tells you otherwise has lost the plot. The thing the practice actually addresses is being ruled by grief, drowning in it for years, letting it run your whole life. You can feel the full weight of a thing and still keep your footing. The Stoics wanted you free enough to feel the right things, not dead enough to feel nothing. I say that as a man who has wept and does not regret it. I will be honest with you. I struggle with this one too. And the hardest place to keep my character is not in public, where strangers are watching and I am on my best behavior. It is at home, with the people who love me and will forgive me, in the tone I let myself use with them that I would be ashamed to use with a stranger. The people closest to us see the version of our character we think we can get away with. That is exactly backward, and I know it, and I still catch myself at it. Here is the practice. The Stoics called it voluntary hardship, and Cleanthes lived it. Once in a while, on purpose, choose a small discomfort you could easily avoid. Eat a plain meal when you could have a rich one. Take the cold few minutes at the end of a shower. Go without the thing you reflexively reach for when you are bored or tired. You are not doing this to punish yourself, and you are certainly not doing it to tell anyone about it afterward. You are doing it to prove to yourself, in your own body, that your steadiness does not depend on being comfortable, and to loosen the quiet grip of all the things you have come to believe you need. Cleanthes did it out of necessity and turned it into freedom. You can do a smaller version of it on purpose. The failure mode here is turning the discomfort into a performance, a thing you announce, or into self-punishment, a way of being hard on yourself. Both miss the point entirely. Keep it small, keep it private, keep it gentle. You are not after suffering. You are after needing less, so that less can be taken from you. What here is yours, and what is not? Your comfort is not finally yours. Your conduct always is. Carry this sentence with you. A good character is the only wealth that holds. But a good character was never meant to be kept like a private treasure, polished alone in a locked room. The Stoics did not think you were built to be a sealed self. So step back out one last time and look at where your small, ordered self actually sits in the world. You feel the pull to wall off. It comes most strongly when the world is loud and frightening. The news makes you want to draw the circle tight, to care only about your own and let the rest of it fend for itself. Or it shows up smaller and quieter in the way you move through an ordinary day, treating half the people in it as obstacles rather than people. The voice on the other end of the phone is a thing in your way. The person serving you is a function, not a life. The driver ahead of you is an irritation with no inner world of his own. You sort people all day, almost without noticing, into the ones who matter and the ones who do not. It is the year 108 in Nicopolis, a town in Greece. The slave with the broken leg is an old man now and free, and he runs a school. His name is still Epictetus, and into his school come all kinds of people, the sons of powerful Roman families, freedmen, the poor. They sit on the same plain benches and they hear the same lessons, because to Epictetus, the one thing that actually mattered about a person was not his rank or his money or his birth. It was his reason. The will inside him, the power to choose, the thing this whole philosophy turns on. And that, the former slave taught, every one of them carried in equal measure, the senator's son and the freedman side by side. A lifetime earlier, other people had owned his body and decided where it went. He had learned in that the only aristocracy that meant anything was the one open to everyone, the rule of a person over himself. 18 centuries later, you move through a day full of people you have quietly filed into those who count and those who do not. Epictetus, of all people, would have you look again. Here is where the Stoic worldview closes the circle it opened with. Remember the very first idea? The cosmos as one connected body, one thing with all its parts in communication. The Stoics believed the same was true of people, that humanity is one community and that there is a pull in us, one they thought began in infancy, to widen the ring of what we care about. First you care for yourself, then, naturally, for the ones closest, your family, then for your neighbors, your city, your people. And the work of a full life, they said, is to keep drawing that ring wider until you can see even the stranger as a fellow member of one human whole. You are a citizen, they said, not only of your town, but of the world. They called this widening process oikiosis, the extension of care from self to other, the natural development of moral concern that makes a person fully human. Hierocles, another of the Stoic teachers, pictured it as concentric circles, with you at the center and your concern radiating outward through family, friends, community, and ultimately to all humanity. Marcus put it simply, and I will give it to you in plain words. The whole earth is one city, one common country, and every person in it is a fellow citizen. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 6. Strip away the distances of rank and nation, and what is left is a single community of reasoning beings, each one carrying the same plain power of judgment. Each one owed the same basic fairness. The Stoics are right about this, and it is the natural and beautiful end of everything we have walked through. If you are a small part of one great whole, then the others are parts of it too, and they are owed something from you. Justice, honesty, the plain recognition that the person in front of you has an inner life exactly as real and as full as your own. I will qualify one thing here, briefly, because the Stoics sometimes pushed it too far. At their most extreme, they said the wise man needs nothing and no one, that virtue alone is enough, and other people are, at most, a convenience he could do without. Here I part ways with them. I do not believe a person is his own foundation. You were not built to be sufficient for yourself, alone, needing no one. And the very same widening of care that sends you out toward others is also what allows you to receive them when your own strength runs out. Keep the self-command the Stoics taught. Refuse the isolation some of them preached. A man who needs no one has not achieved something. He has lost something. And now the whole long walk turns back to its center. We started at the edge of the cosmos and came inward, room by room, past the order of the world, past fate, past what time takes, past the shape of your own character, all the way down to the smallest and most important thing of all, the reasoning will, the part of you that chooses how to meet whatever comes. Everything external can be bound, as Epictetus knew better than anyone. That one inner thing cannot, unless you hand it over. Hierocles, another of the Stoics, put the freedom of it plainly. The wise are free, they are unbounded. Hierocles, not free of circumstances. Epictetus had almost none of those freedoms. Free in the one country that was always fully theirs. Here is a practice, and it is the one that carries the whole worldview into a single ordinary day. The Stoics imagined the people in your life as a set of circles around you, yourself in the center, then your family close in, then your friends and neighbors, then your city, your country, and at the widest ring, all people everywhere. And they said the actual daily work of a good life, is to pull the outer circles gently inward, to treat the neighbor a little more like family, the stranger a little more like the neighbor. So today, do this. Take one person you would normally pass over, the one serving you, the one complaining at you, the one it is easiest to treat as a thing rather than a person, and treat them, just once, deliberately, as someone whose inner life is every bit as real and as weighty as your own. One person, one real act of fairness or attention. You will mean to do this, and the day will swallow it, and it will stay a nice idea in your head and never reach your hands. That is the usual failure. So make it concrete and small. Not all of humanity today. One person, one moment, one choice to see them. The wide circle is only ever crossed one person at a time. What here is yours, and what is not. Their worth is not yours to grant or withhold. How you treat them is entirely yours. Carry this sentence with you. Be a good part of the whole today. The day is ending. Let us review it as the Stoics did. Not to scold yourself and not to tally up your failures, but to look honestly at the day that just passed, the way Seneca said he lay in the dark each night and went back over his own. We will do it together in questions. When the whole world climbed onto your chest this morning, before your feet had even touched the floor, how much of it was actually yours to carry? When something refused to make sense to you today, did you stand there demanding that it explain itself? Or did you bring your own steady judgment to meet it? When you were waiting on something you could not control, how many times did you live through it in your head before it ever arrived? What fact, already finished and impossible to change, did you go on arguing with anyway? If you had remembered, even once today, that your days are numbered and the number is not yours to set, which of the things that gripped you would have quietly loosened? Who got the tone from you that you would never use with a stranger? At home, unwatched, were you the person you actually mean to be? And whom did you treat as a thing today, when they were a person with an inner life as real as your own? And whom, for once, did you truly see? Those are not questions to answer out loud. They are the day held up to the light. Some of it you will be glad of. Some of it you will want to do better tomorrow. Both of those are the practice working. This is the whole of it in the end. Not a set of rules to memorize and not a creed to recite. A way of standing in your own life. You are one small connected part of something vast that you did not make and cannot command. Most of what presses on you was never in your hands to begin with. A little of it always is, and that little, your judgment, your conduct, your character, is where the whole of your freedom lives. After all of it, the entire worldview still comes down to 7 words. The ones you have heard running through this from the start. What here is yours, and what is not? Here are the sentences to carry, all of them now, in one place. You are a part, not the whole. Act like a part. The world is ordered. Your task is to answer in kind. What is yours is small, and it is everything. Spend less of today fighting what already happened. Remember the end, and the small things stay small. A good character is the only wealth that holds. Be a good part of the whole today. Here is your one task for tomorrow, not a program, one thing. Tomorrow, just once, when something lands on you and your chest tightens, stop before you react. Ask the one question this whole philosophy folds down into. What here is mine and what is not? Sort it honestly. Then put everything you have into your half, the part that was always yours, and set the other half down. Just once tomorrow. That is the whole assignment. If you want to keep practicing together, subscribe. It helps these conversations reach the people who need them. You are small, you are connected, and your will is your own. Walk well.